Thinking it would have been cool if I had a.
Okay, we are back after our break. Before we have voted on item number 5, which is the South Main Street Corridor overlay. Before we end this, is there any follow-up that the council is expecting of staff?
That's a good question.
I heard a lot of talk about sending it back to the Planning Commission and giving them flexibility as to when they thought they could tackle it, but I'd definitely like to hear what the idea is about what direction would be sent to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I don't think it's articulated well enough to actually send down anything at this point.
So do we have an idea of when we'd like to have staff put that back on the agenda?
You want to revisit this again?
What I heard was that, what I heard primarily from George was that he felt more comfortable with the repeal because things hadn't been studied out enough, but that he's not against looking further at more simple beautification options, and would like the Planning Commission to restudy that.
Yes, I did indicate that that would be something I'd want to look at, but I was also swayed by the impassioned plea of Corey that we might want to let this rest for a couple weeks and come back to it.
Well,
So do you want to
on
put-
Corey's behalf,
I was completely persuaded. So.
and on Corey's behalf, he doesn't have an assistant planner right now, and I think he'd appreciate at least a couple of months to get some help on board, right? Yeah.
I think in a collaborative effort, there is going to be angst by the decision made being respectful to the reason it was made. And I think we need to let that dry itself out. Hear the complaints. I mean, you saw, I assume you've seen an email recently that came in, sent to the council. I got it, and it was a highly engaged,
emotionally
email.
charged?
Yes, and I think there's some value importance even to that dissenting opinion about it. And so for me, for a collaborative effort to run back to the property owners and engage them, send them the notifications, and we're going to have this work session and that, and try to re-engage this. I mean, I'm being honest with you. I want job security, but not on this one. I think giving it a rest, putting it on a goal for the next season after the end of the year, and say, okay, that's rested. Dissenters with this current vote will have gone through whatever withdrawal that they need to go through, and I'm trying to be nice, so please on YouTube don't take it offensive. But we can then engage back in and say, okay, the goal now is to look at something sensible, and we're going to engage with the stakeholders and have some more meetings, because we're hitting right around the time of the holidays, and I just worry about that engagement is just going to be lackluster.
You had me at the cooling off period.
Okay.
So
So
I don't know if you've convinced everyone else, but you had me the first
and
go around.
I'm doing it for
so.
my sanity. This is very selfish on my part. I think to engage and be optimistic about a new plan and ideas and working through with the Planning Commission, letting them absorb what they need to think about for a while, then we start again with a new goal, beginning
And
after the first
that's what I was
year.
asking for, is what the vision of that time frame would be, and it sounds like
Well,
when we
we
visit
have
again
not
for
got done with our short
2017.
goal visits from this last goal session. And so the issue that we have to discuss is your West Side plan and its process, and whether you want to engage that now, whether you want to bump that back and put this forward ahead of it. I think those, I don't remember what the other long-range goals were, but I think with tonight, with the IH zoning, we finally ended the short-term goals. And we still have a list of community pathways. We still have a list of West Side plan.
You haven't finished the accessory building setback and flag lots. That's been assigned
that's
to the
right.
Planning Commission, and we'll come back.
Flag lots. I've got those booked and scheduled, so to me.
So what I hear is bring back beautification, allow the planning commission to put that on their topic list for
Yeah, I'd be happy to sell them that they can re-engage, will be a part of a goal process beginning next year, and that we can start putting that timeline. But if you want it January, too early. I think if you're looking at spring, probably okay.
Any objections to that?
No.
Let's
We
go.
don't usually get to our goal-setting session until March anyway.
All right, let's move forward. Item number 6 is industrial very high zoning. Do you want to tackle that tonight?
Motion to table.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we table. Do you have a direction on when to table that to?
Try again next.
2017?
2017, February 1st meeting.
No. Next meeting,
Your next one at this point doesn't look too bad. That can change, but
next meeting.
if it does look too bad, then you can table it again.
I still think the problem I have when we tabled this the first time is we don't have a swap out. We're looking at a change, but there isn't really something we want to put in place. So yes, I'm punting, but I would prefer that we had something that we were discussing in terms of what the vision is for that area, rather than changing it outright from very high without any kind of fallback as to what goes there.
So I have a motion to table with no timeline and a second to that. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I was willing to put a timeline on it when you said 2017. I said first meeting in February 2017.
Okay. Seriously?
And then Bill disagreed on that one. So I guess, Bill, did somebody second that?
Robin did.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand why you want to bring it to the next meeting versus like a couple months down the road, just so we accomplish it?
I think 2017 is too far. I'd
Okay.
like to, I think it's, I'm
More
actually
timeline.
ready to vote on it, but I can understand there's a lot of questions. I've spent some time with some people, and I just know what I feel. So I think
mean,
2017 is a little far out, but
mean,
if
if
you
it-
want to do it 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 meetings, that's fine.
And if people are ready to vote on it, you can vote on it.
Well, we had a motion and a second, and I'm not going to fight.
Yeah, well,
it.
I can always amend the motion to
No, I
a different
understand,
time
but-
frame. So if there's enough will to move it,
We didn't put a date on it. We
Well,
didn't
I
put a
just
time
did.
on it. Right, but not before I seconded it. So it doesn't count. Don't you read the Robert Rules of Order?
yes, point of order, you're probably correct.
Robin went to training.
That's right, I've been in training, so you better watch out.
We'll call it point of personal privilege then.
First meeting in November.
I'll second that amendment. We're going by Robert's rules now.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment to table this until, to move the
First meeting in November.
time will be brought back to the first meeting in November. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
And we're back to the, that passes 4-1. Back to the original motion to table this, which now means table until the first meeting in November. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that's tabled to November. November 2016. Number 7, construction codes. Lisa.
Okay. Thank you. We're working our way through some of the legislative changes from the 2016 Utah State Legislative Session. And one of those amendments, they adopted the new construction codes. They do this about every 4 or 5 years. 3 years.
Every
Steve
3
says
years,
3.
they get
Sometimes
updated.
they lag behind, but.
They change how often they adopt it.
Yeah, so.
3 years is the current compromise,
But
right?
basically, we have in our code, we've adopted the 2012 version of the International Building Code. The state requires us to adopt and enforce the same codes that they adopt. So this is just correcting, updating the addition. I've talked with our building official from Sunrise Engineering. Obviously, they're already enforcing the 2000 15 version. This was effective July 1, so you'll see there's an effective date for our ordinance, just saying, yes, we're using these, and we've been using them since July. So we're recommending approval of the ordinance changes. I wish I could tell you more. They did adopt a new code called the Existing Building Code. I don't know a lot about that one, but we'll be working with that one as well. That's actually a new code that they've adopted and implemented.
And our inspectors, obviously, are their responsibility to be well-versed in this and already enforcing it.
Yes,
after
and our
July 1st.
building inspector actually notified me of the amendments and said they were coming, so that's nice. And Steve followed up, so.
So any questions on ordinance 2016-25?
Motion to adopt ordinance 2016-25.
Second?
Further discussion?
I did try to go into the state code and to read the existing buildings section, and, wow.
Well, they-
A lot of specifications about how many feet apart doorways have to be and things like that. It made me a little nervous.
Yeah,
But-
the existing building code is every time you remodel and do something, you have to comply with the IBCs that are in place. The state had not adopted in the past the existing building code. The existing building code is more of a relief code to the current 2015 issues, because the IBC is now recognizing that existing buildings may have some difficulties complying with the new codes. And so the existing building code comes in and says, here's where you change that for existing buildings, recognizing some old parameters. So it is complex, because it's as thick as other code books.
Yeah, it was
But
hundreds.
it's actually a relief code that the state had not adopted some of these other appendices and other codes previously. Building inspectors use them because they can use them by reference in the original building code, but the state didn't explicitly adopt them in the past.
So we literally have no choice on this, right? Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct. You can make local amendments, but you have to apply to the state for those local amendments. And there's some things that they give us a choice on, like the abatement of dangerous buildings, so we've adopted that. But on these standard codes, we're required to adopt the same one the state does, or go through an amendment process to
Yeah,
those
and then
codes.
your building inspectors are all licensed by the state, and so as soon as the state adopts them, they automatically enforce them because they're licensed by the state.
But we might want to start looking closer at that, because that was the one thing I noticed. Farmington City and Sandy City both have parts that say this is specific to this city. And
There are some that used to be allowed, like hillside development and sprinkling systems had to be applied to the state. The state will no longer approve those exemptions. But Lisa's right, if you want an exemption, you have to write down your exemption, your explanation why, and then it goes to the state board to decide. I can tell you that your ability to convince them is on a low measure.
And they only hear it on certain times of the year.
lovely, good to know.
All right.
Not that my protest is meaningful, and I recognize that it's not, but some of the stuff in that is just absolutely insane.
There are a lot of state, and that might have been what you were reading, because these are actually published by a private company, the International Code Co. But then the state of Utah adopts pages and pages and pages of amendments to these codes.
Right.
And so,
I'm
because I think
referring
the
to-
state legislature.
I'm referring to specific application,
Oh.
and when I did some construction and have a stairway, and because my stair rail was 1 inch lower than it was supposed to be, it was not considered safe. I mean, I'm disgusted.
Okay, we have a motion on the table and a second to amend Title 10, Chapter 3 of the Centerville Municipal Code regarding building constructions, 2016-25. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
That's 4-1, according to my count.
There is ongoing debate, even among the inspectors and the general contractors. Are these building codes minimum safety standards or maximum safety standards? And the consensus generally in the rumor mill is they're well above minimum safety standards.
Yeah, well, the difference between a stair rail at 34 inches and 35 inches doesn't make a lot of difference, let me tell you.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the financial report.
I assume you don't want a detailed report, but I should say a couple of things, then I'll answer questions. If you've reviewed the general fund report, this is for 2 months, and you may have noticed that most of the departments are running a little ahead in terms of expenditures percentage-wise than the amount of the year expired. There would be a couple of explanations for that. One is that we had 5 payrolls in those 2 months, and so that disproportionately assigns cost to those 2 months. And secondly, beginning of each fiscal year, you have some annual contracts that are paid, software maintenance type contracts, for example. And you also have equipment purchased, some equipment purchased that, those things taken together explain that. I'm not concerned about those percentages, in other words, being where they are. And then you'll notice on the revenue side that the property tax, it doesn't really start coming in until November and December. And that's why you see the expenditures exceeding revenues year to date. That's typical for this point in the fiscal year.
Steve, do you have did Blaine have any explanation on the transfers contribution, why that was a little bit
The transfers.
abnormal,
On the revenue side.
17,000?
Where is that?
It's revenues, bottom line.
No, it's a relatively small dollar number, but I did not ask that question of Blaine. Sorry.
I'm sure there's a specific
I thought he explained that
explanation.
last time as the settlement for Macquarie? Or is that
Right.
different?
That was the
No, that was
expense.
prior fiscal year.
Okay.
This is something else.
But there's probably
Dollar
something-
amount's very similar.
Yeah.
Would be interesting. I'd like to know if you could find that out first.
Okay,
Maybe send an email.
okay.
Any other questions for Steve on the financial report?
It hasn't happened yet, but whose budget is the volunteer recognition dinner in?
It's in the city, let's see, I think it's in the executive budget, I believe. It's a line item, separate line item in the executive budget for that. Or it might be in the council's budget, I can't remember which, but it's its own line item.
And
Within that
since you
budget.
brought that up, I think we have, we agreed on, we had 175 RSVPs.
And we added 10 to that
10 just
because
in
we had a
case.
few still calling in and despite the deadline. So we're planning on 185.
Some people don't show, some new people
Yeah,
do show.
yeah, obvious. I mean, it's just like doing a wedding reception. You got no idea how many are gonna come.
Depends on the weather.
Yeah.
I
Weather-
would hate
weather
for
looks
anybody
good.
to be turned away if they show up.
And generally, we don't turn people away.
I think the question's been raised is, are there other volunteers that should have been invited? Well, yeah, it's a matter of defining that. I got an email from Nancy of the museum board asking that next year we try to provide some guidance as to what constitutes a significant volunteer to invite.
Sounds like a reasonable request.
We can, I don't know if you want to define that by number of hours they've given or what, but I told the museum director today when I met with her, I said, well, if we don't give you any further guidance, just call next year and tell me what your situations are, and between the mayor and I, we can decide whether to add them, or if you want to get involved, we can do that as well.
It's not so much that I'd like to get involved, but I would be curious to know how many volunteers there are and how many and we're obviously inviting, well, someplace in the neighborhood of 120, say, because if your number's 185 and you invite
That maybe half is
significant others and
volunteers.
families, so we're inviting 100 out of how many?
Well, we know we have a couple of hundred with the July 4th that aren't invited. We invite the chairs of the various committees, of July 4th subcommittees, and allowed them to if they had a few key volunteers within their subcommittee, to invite those as well. But most of the volunteers for the July 4th are not included. So, I mean, if you want the mayor and I to talk about some potential guidelines, improve the guidance next year, we can do that and run that by the council. You're also welcome to look at the list next year of who's it's been sent to. But the way we've approached it is to have each committee send a list, each chair send a list. And,
I think the goal would be to make sure that we don't ever have anyone who comes away saying, well, the heck with them over it. And have we? I don't know.
Yes, every year we forget somebody.
Okay.
So is it something
people
we're
are
doing
human.
that's good, or is it something that we're doing that maybe we're spending a lot of money on that's really not good?
I think it's really good. If you haven't been to one, come, you get to, it's a
I was
great.
never invited.
I was invited last year, but I was out of town.
well, last year you were invited to the Christmas dinner.
Yeah, you were.
As a planning commissioner, they were invited to the Christmas dinner.
I got invited to both last year.
Let's see, maybe you, because, that's right, because of emergency prepare, the cert, you were one of
It's a great
the,
opportunity for council to interact and thank people.
yeah.
All
So,
right.
any other questions about this budget report? I could tell you a lot more, but I've got a lot of notes I could share with you, but. Okay,
I think they're ready to move on.
all right.
Mayor's report, you've got the South Davis Metro Fire financials there. If you have any questions, I would report, just so you're aware, given the sensitivity in our community, that there was a biker hit today on Frontage Road, quite serious. They believe he'll survive, but it was a very serious accident.
Any idea if it was his fault or the driver?
I don't know.
No, 20, about 2050 north, in front of that Symphony Homes subdivision on the, almost to Farmington.
But next year, we'll widen that road and we'll add official bike lanes with the grant.
You've got the Utopia.
When something like that happens, do you as the mayor, does Steve as city manager, do we as the council send some kind of an acknowledgement or a condolence or a something to family? I'm just curious.
So the protocol we've established with the chief and with the chief of police and the chief of fire, if there's a significant incident, leave it up to their judgment. They notify Steve and I. Generally, if there's any fire or very serious medical, Chief Bassett will send a note. Chief Child also sends things frequently, you know, and we kind of leave it up to if we follow up with them sometimes on it.
Those agencies themselves are pretty good about following up, is my impression, the police and the fire.
I'd like them to err on the side of letting us know sometimes, because sometimes people come up to me in the community, you know, and they're like, I'm sorry about the bicyclist who's hit, and I'm looking at them like going,
I
oh, me
agree.
too, where were they
I
hit?
agree.
So I would
I would
kinda
rather
like
know.
a little bit more, maybe information on what's going on in our community. Or somebody comes up and they've heard that there were 8 robberies. I don't know anything about it, but I'm the council person and they think I should.
To Chief Child's credit, I think he, in my impression is he shares a lot more information than
I think he does
previously,
too, but
and
I just think maybe we
makes an
just need to
effort.
give him the guidance that we'd rather him err on too much than not enough.
and what I would maybe suggest is either Steve or I pass that on
Yeah.
Right.
to you if it's something
Yep.
significant. I thought about the cyclist this morning and thought, well, let's see if we can get a status update on him, and we're meeting tonight. so
But it's
I-
just awkward when you're in this grocery store and everybody in there knows more about what's going on in the community than
It
you
is.
do.
Tell me about it.
I try not to grocery shop sometimes, 'cause
Council chambers, so you've got the Utopia financial reports. There was not a board meeting this year. But there will be
Good month.
something, we're going to have a closed meeting to update you on an issue. City Council Chambers sound issue, Steve and I and Blaine met with a sound engineer who came to discuss this building. He commented that part of our problem is we have sound coming from the back forward and from the front back, and that causes a lot of problems. He recommended the same solution that he had recommended to Blaine before, with some tiles on the ceiling, but with some modifications, that we could just leave spaces around the sprinkler systems and the lights that would cut the cost by thousands and thousands of dollars, and you would still have almost the same impact. So I've directed Blaine to get a new quote to do this work, and if it comes back within the budget amount, we're going to proceed to get it done. His opinion was, and every sound engineer I think we've talked to, the opinion is put up the sound tiles first, and then before you try to change the sound system in here.
In the meantime, the recommendation was we turn the speakers off on the back wall, wasn't that it, ma'am?
Correct, which I believe we did.
Which I forgot to do tonight.
Well, they
so-
should have been off. Blaine,
No, they're back, because I think there's been,
there's been other means, but Blaine was going to reset it permanently so that they were not on.
we got these speakers, they're all on.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if that was, I think that would not have solved Ron Randall's problem tonight.
No.
No, and the panels wouldn't have solved that either.
So, update on that. Also, Blaine and I also met with a commercial furniture designer that's worked with Farmington and a couple of other cities on some furniture concepts that are very close to what Nicole brought, but are commercial grade. He had some extras. He has an extra that Farmington, a version of what Farmington put in their new gym in a reception area that was the wrong color. So but it's not the right color for us either, but it's kind of a style that we may want to consider. He's going to come put it in the lobby. Just know that it's the wrong color, but when you see it, think about the style and the fabric of it. And he's also going to bring I think it was a sample table to put in, just put here for a week so you could look at it. And
Will you
think
let
about
us know when they arrive? Because I don't always make it in a timely manner.
if sure.
I don't want to know, just to see how long it takes me to notice.
Yeah. It's red, so you'll probably notice.
I wouldn't guarantee that.
If the price is right, red kind of goes.
Yeah, I think we could keep it till the next city council meeting. So, okay, that's my report.
My turn?
Yes.
I will keep this very short. We have the Citizens Corps is very active. We meet the first Saturday of every month at 7:30, and after that, then I go to the Davis County equivalent. We have a planned emergency drill on October 8th. It will be discussed and reviewed in the emergency planning session with Steve and Paul tomorrow afternoon. This is a wildfire type drill. We are pushing to have one block designated in each district, i.e. stake, in the city for mock evaluation. Paul is trying to arrange with the Red Cross to have an evacuation center set up. People would go down, get some juice and donuts, and then leave. We will be testing the
What
communication.
time
Bill,
will
what
that be
time?
at?
Yeah,
It's at 10 o'clock, unfortunately.
That's the same time as our pedestrian bridge ribbon cutting,
that's right. Right hand and left hand, didn't
which we're going to need our police and.
Well, I hated the time when Paul said it, but he asked me not to change it because it was. I've begged him to do 8 o'clock because people want to do it before they start their day.
Do you think we could possibly push it back to another day?
Sure.
Talk about that tomorrow?
We can either push it, we can
do
either
it
push it earlier in
during
that
that
day, or we can push it back.
To another date? Let's talk about that
Let's
tomorrow.
ask
Yeah.
Chief
I didn't
Chow
realize
what
that
the
had been
impact
set.
I had not thought about that overlap either. I apologize. Good that it was mentioned just now. We have 10 new radios for distribution, which will substantially improve the coverage in the South District. And Saturday is the South Davis County Emergency Fair at Woods Cross High. It runs from 9 until 3. If you have any interest in those kinds of things, it should be well worth your time. I will be there for a significant period of time. I think that's all I really, unless somebody has any particular questions.
Maybe the only question is the, the CERT team has radios, and our police and our emergency folks have radios. I do not have a radio. I don't think our public information officer, Corey, he doesn't live here, so that maybe not, doesn't make sense to have any.
Jake may become our
Jake's our public information.
officer.
I think that's a
Yeah,
great idea.
welcome to the neighborhood. Good to have you.
But maybe,
I will see
consider
if
that.
I can't maybe redirect. The other thing is,
I don't.
and I love his support, but Don is more orthodox than I am. He pays $200 for radios. I pay $75. So I'll figure out a way to get a couple of more radios.
Give me the cheapest, oldest one you've got, but it'd probably be good protocol, just
Fair enough.
It would.
just in case.
Good point. I will make some arrangements.
So Bill, one question for you related to the radio communications. Do we have anything close to a current inventory of residents who are ham radio operators willing to assist in the event of an emergency? I know we have folks like Larry Wright, who's a ham operator. There are other folks in town who may or may not be willing
We
to
have
participate.
we have one or two in each district
Okay.
that are part of the team and are meeting and communicating with the Aries network the first Sunday night of every month. And then they are plugged in through the various district coordinators.
Fantastic.
So do I have a full inventory? No, and one of the areas in my district is doing a radio program starting Saturday that's been advertised around and is available to people. I would say we've probably got a minimum of 5 per district who have the capability to help, but like I say, we have an A and a B in each
Yeah.
district.
And that's fantastic coverage. I know of some cities who are hard pressed to identify one ham radio operator, so we're well supplied in that. And so that's good. We have something close to an idea of who would be there to help out.
And the system has been tested on a number of occasions. We had the windstorm in, what was that, in 11. And I didn't realize personally how bad it was, and got a telephone call from the city saying, hey, why aren't you on the network? I said, well, I didn't know how bad it was. And within an hour and a half, every district had reported in from every area. So it really works pretty well.
That's awesome.
So, as far as Davis County Chamber of Commerce, I am struggling with how to be effective in liaison. The meetings that I have been to,
I wouldn't worry about that too much.
I
Bill.
feel like I've wasted my time, frankly.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have any expectations there of what you need to be doing.
Depends on which one you go to. There are some that are political, there are some that are just go out to the introduction of a new thing. I mean, it's just all over the map. I mean, I could go to something 3 times a week if I wanted to.
Yeah,
I don't have that kind
there's a lot of
time.
events, so.
Yeah.
I interact with Angie, who's our chamber lead, very
So you're going
regularly.
to the mayor's luncheon?
I am not because I have to go out of town suddenly, but I'm sending Tammy to give a 5-minute blurb on what's going on in Centerville.
Okay.
And Bill, for what,
I wouldn't worry about the chamber. I
Okay.
have that
I
covered.
haven't
Yeah.
worried about, I felt a little guilty. I'm not worried about it a little.
well, this was my recollection. We actually appointed somebody as a representative because we pay a membership fee and felt like, okay, we ought to have somebody who formally is our rep as a member of the chamber. But with that, as far as I'm concerned, comes no expectations
Okay.
of you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Steve, wanna talk about this?
Okay. Well, I sent out today, last night, something to you late, and then a revision today, or told you there was a revision on Novus. So if you're looking at that, Jake, can you pull that up, the proposed plan for the open house, second draft? I did add another station. I thought that we ought to inform people of what the recommended short-term and long-term actions as stated in the report are, including what has been done and is being done to limit the city's liability, steps that have already been taken and things that are contemplating taking, and that would be important. But, you know, the long-term actions aren't, if you looked at those recently, they're not saying we should or shouldn't have trees in the park strip. They're saying we need to make that decision. So I don't want anybody to be alarmed that I'm trying to dictate policy through presenting these recommendations. It's just as they show in the report. But I am recommending that we revise the summary action, the executive summary in the report by adding one short-term and one long-term. If you look, pull that document up, Jake. The report includes a section about trees and shrubs near the sidewalks and the 2,000 or so obstructions created for overhead clearance on the sidewalk and overhead clearance on the roadway, and then sight vision triangles. I thought we ought to at least have a little blurb in the summary, in the executive summary about that. And then that led to me suggesting we add a short-term goal that we undertake a public education effort to try to get voluntary compliance, get the public, those folks, as many of them we can, to do it on their own and get it done so we don't have to consider whether to take enforcement action. And then the long-term addition is, in the cases where there hasn't been voluntary action taken, we need to determine what type or level of enforcement we want to undertake.
Do we have anything in the newsletter now on, hey, these are what these sidewalk markers are? Or we're only going to put it in the
That's what these
utility
sidewalk
bill.
markers are? You mean the
you know,
paint?
the
Yellow.
paint?
Yellow
Oh.
stripes.
Oh, well, the article that I was supposed to, I hope to show you tonight would mention that, but it's not written yet. It'll be written tomorrow or Thursday. I'll fire it to you by email and give you overnight to review that. But that was one of the ways I was thinking of starting it is, have you noticed all the yellow?
Right.
You may be wondering what's all this yellow paint for, and then take it from there
Is the
to,
intent to put something in
Nobody
the,
wonders, they've all asked us.
It's true.
It'll go in the insert.
it'll go in the utility bill insert.
Utility
only,
Because-
nothing in the newsletter?
Well, the newsletter may have a follow-up article of some kind, but that's after the open house, the newsletter.
Right.
So, in fact, I was thinking there was something we could elaborate on in the newsletter more than we would put in the utility bill insert.
Who's all asked you?
If you got any
Who's all asked you what?
things particularly you want me to emphasize in the newsletter, which comes,
Hearing from residents about the trees?
okay. If there's anything particular you want me to address more in the newsletter after the open house, I can do that. But we want to, of course, get their interest in coming to the open house.
I'd
Stephen?
like to ask the council, when you're driving around, to notice how many trees actually hang into the road. I've never noticed it, never bothered me. But I had a mailman stop the other day and tell me that a tree was hitting his windshield every time he drove by, and it's on Main Street. And I thought, wow, well, sure enough, he drove by and bashed his windshield with this tree. So since then, as I drive around, I'm noticing how many of our streets have trees hanging down where any size of a good vehicle is hitting them. We have a lot.
Yeah.
More than I had
The
realized.
report documents that.
So it was interesting, though, I think as once it was brought to my attention, I noticed it. So I think it'd be interesting if all of us notice so that we realize the problem there is.
I did have a question for clarification on this red line in the executive summary, where you have the 164 obstructions of the 50-foot triangle. I was wondering if that included tree trunks, because we asked for clarification on that, and if that's bushes or an actual visibility obstruction, because the street tree ordinance that got written allowed for a certain caliber tree trunk to not be counted as an obstruction in that site triangle.
In other words, if it was small enough.
So I want to be
And a
sure that those aren't
deciduous-
being
And I think a
counted
deciduous tree, we
in
talked
that.
about that.
Does
If it's
this,
deciduous and has under a certain number of inch caliper, then it shouldn't be counted as,
But recognizing that over a 3 or 5 or 10-year period, it's probably going to become counted. Right?
well,
I don't
think
remember
there-
what the inch caliper was, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll have to review that. Some trees, because maybe they have a high
Canopy.
a canopy might be okay.
Yeah, if the canopy's higher than the visual for your average car, driver height, and, so that's one thing that we talked through in that process of writing up that street tree ordinance, so.
Okay, I'll check that, yes. One of the things about the proposed plan I need to update you on is that I learned that we cannot get the arborist. I spoke with him, actually I communicated by email and phone message today. Scott Zeidler is a hunter and will be in Idaho hunting, using a coveted elk permit in Idaho on that date. I also attempted to get Mackenzie, our intern, who's a certified arborist, to come, and she has a Wednesday night class. So I don't have a certified arborist at this point. But Scott did say he would be willing to meet with me and provide some materials, so,
Prior to the thing?
yeah.
I actually feel more comfortable with that, because one of the concerns I had with that is what is this intent of the open house? Is it simply to first introduce the challenge and then get comment and feedback as to citizens' ideas and thoughts on how to address the challenge? Or is it to delve deeper into the bigger question of trees and their value and weighing the pros and cons? And if that's the case, I think maybe the arborist bleeds into that part of the discussion a little bit. And so if that's the case, I felt a little bit uncomfortable that maybe there weren't some other tables for things like creative solutions other cities have done, or, things like that.
Opposing views, yeah, or alternate views, I guess I
Yeah.
should say. Yeah, I had that thought as well, because I don't, as you can see, I wrote the objective so that it doesn't appear we're trying to direct a certain outcome here, we're trying to inform. The message I got from you as the council is that we want to inform our residents of the situation, of the conditions, and before you proceed as a council discussing policy. Am I correct in understanding
No, I
that?
think you're correct. Should we think about a different arborist? I have a tree issue far away from the sidewalk, but a tree issue, and I'm contemplating taking a couple out. And at least one of the people that I called about taking it out claimed to be an arborist. Is there someone else that we could invite or want to try to invite?
We have the Salt Lake City arborist just moved into Centerville.
I mean,
Well,
it's not the one you've used, but I
Yeah.
mean, it would be someone who could be here and answer questions.
yeah, I think Tammy's raised a good point, is maybe that there's not a need for an arborist at this function.
Has moved into the house next to the car wash. I don't know if you've noticed
And the advice of the arborist may be more important when you get into those policy discussions.
Yeah.
I think it bleeds into that. Now, I think that also leads to a valuable question, because I think it's hard for, we're trying to attract people on a tree issue without delving into the conversation of the value of trees versus the challenges they bring. And so is that enough of an attraction to get people to turn up? Or do we want to let it bleed into this other category?
I think
I suspect that there are a few people who feel very passionate about trees and sidewalks, just like you have people passionate about other things. And if those few people start to get involved, just like we've seen with other issues, when passionate people get involved, you will see people come out. So I suspect there's one or two people in the 1825 neighborhood that I believe will
Be here.
share things passionately with their neighbors and come and speak about the value of trees, or at least come and ask questions and try to get it more educated. But at some point, we need to say, okay, who goes and finds out other options? Do we spend staff time on that, or is it a city council member, or other passionate people
Just
doing
wait to
that on
hear
their
from
own?
the citizens. Yeah, I mean, that's a really important next step question.
I'm comfortable starting this now and seeing how much passion is out there.
Okay.
Well, at this point, I'm not intending to try to get another arborist there,
I don't know that it's necessary. It was a thought.
okay?
If this Salt Lake City arborist has moved in, why don't you invite him over? We'd love to meet him.
I can do that. I don't know if he'll come.
I mean, what is his role when if he comes
He's a citizen,
as a
Just a
citizen?
citizen.
Oh,
but we like to take citizens with special skills and get them to volunteer their time to help us.
What's
Offer
his
them a free
last
dinner
name?
next year.
Volunteer dinner.
so, so generally speaking, are you comfortable with the proposed plan for the open house?
I don't have any objections to it. I think it's a good plan.
Okay, and the role for the council members is to just be available if citizens want to tell you something,
To be passionately talked
or,
about.
or you want to ask somebody, well, what do you, I don't know, just but to be available in the open house area. Okay. Well, unless there's further direction,
And it's the 5th, right?
Yes, it is the
that's
5th.
correct, which is Wednesday night from 6 to 8. Okay. Quickly, I want to correct something I told you earlier by email, I believe, was that when we found some anchors on the railroad bridge that were not secure, I had been led to believe that those had been corrected already. Well, some work had been done, but Kevin informed me yesterday that there's still some work for the contractor to do to completely repair those anchors and make them solid. So you may still see some activity there, and I didn't want you to wonder, well, why did Steve tell us
Steve,
it was done?
At the Trails Committee, we had somebody say that they had been on the bridge and that there was a place on the bridge that a 3-year-old could fall through onto the freeway.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't fall onto the freeway. They would, there's just a narrow gap between this vehicle bridge and the pedestrian bridge. It goes a ways and then drops off down to a concrete platform, and then there's a slope down to the freeway, and there's a concrete retaining wall there. Anyway, I mean, we don't, from our view, that's not any more dangerous than somebody trying to cross the on-ramp or off-ramp. Basically, we We have talked about maybe putting one of those signs in that gap that we talked about putting up, but the chief weighed in on this, and
I haven't seen it. I don't know. There was just somebody there telling us that they had been on it and that there was this gap, and I just had this visual of,
you have to
Come to the
go,
opening.
you have to go in quite a ways between the two bridges in that narrow space before you get to that drop-off point. So if you got a 3-year-old that's doing that, then their parents are not paying attention to them.
Okay, anything else, Steve?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. Let's go back under miscellaneous business and review and accept the minutes, if you don't mind.
Wow, good remembering.
There are 3 sets of minutes. First is the work session on the 6th. That was the work session with Randy Randall, 1-page minutes description.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the 9/6/2016 work session minutes.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Next, we have the council meeting on September 6th. Anyone have changes to that?
Move that we accept those minutes.
Second.
Moved and second, we have approved the minutes of September 6th, the regular city council meeting minutes. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And last, we have the joint work session with the property owners from Main Street and the Planning Commission, which was a more lengthy discussion. Any changes on those minutes? If not,
I couldn't remember whether it was Kim Samuelson or Kevin Samuelson who spoke.
Kim?
Was it Kim?
It was Kim.
It was
yeah.
Kim. Kevin was here tonight, right?
That's right.
If there are no changes, I'd recommend approval of those minutes from September 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Wow,
Any
Katie.
opposed?
Katie.
Motion to adjourn to a closed meeting.
Could I just, for a moment, I received a complaint about wasp nests at the Island View Park upper level. I've seen them. They're roughly the size of a basketball each, and the whole pavilion area is heavily infested
The upper
with the
level
wasp. The upper level.
pavilion?
I spoke to Bruce about it this evening, and I stepped out and grabbed him, and he's going to go up and check. There are apparently 2 kinds of wasps, and they're adversarial, and some of them are aggressive and some of them are not, so he's going to check into which kind we have and deal with it. But in case you hear about that,
Okay.
there are 2 or possibly 3 basketball-sized wasp nests.
There are no wasps.
Oh, there, oh.
In my view.
Okay. George, did I hear you make a motion to adjourn to a closed session?
Yes,
Is there a second?
Second.
For the purpose of
for the
this-
purposes of provisions under section 52-4-205 of the Open Public Meetings Act,
Which I would
Is that,
also,
is
which
that
we don't need to define beyond that. Really, right?
character and competency?
say it's
Well,
character and competence.
Typically, we do.
But it's not character, and well, I guess you could say it's character of an individual. We could do it
We
that
may
way.
want to, yeah. So you could
Say
at
it's
least
character
state
of
that,
an-
that you know you're going into
character
for the
and
character
individual.
competence of
So
an
do we need to
individual
shut
and
things
other
down?
reasons
Yeah,
allowed by law.
and, as soon as we vote in favor, and there's no reason to come, I don't have a reason to come
No.
back out of that.
So, yeah, we can adjourn the regular city council meeting and move to a closed
And
session.
if it is character or competence, then you do not have to do the recording, so.
Which I'd recommend we do.
Yeah, character
That's a
and
good
prefer that.
competence works fine.
Is there anyone, is there a second? Somebody already second that?
Second.
Okay.
If somebody did.
I
I
do
thought Bill-
have one other comment before we do that, if I might.
Okay, before we vote on that and move,
I got a complaint about about substantial violations, no detail, in that new project up right on the northwest corner, east of the freeway. Did everybody get it?
I got it, but it was just to me, so I didn't know if everybody else got it. I talked to him,
didn't.
I've talked to Corey about it, he's supposed to be checking it out.
I forwarded it to Corey. I
Yeah.
haven't talked to
Is this
anyone.
It's on my follow-up.
No,
It's on my
this was
follow-up with Corey. I've made a note to talk to Corey.
Okay,
about-
fine. That's
Oh,
fine.
the Oakwood Homes, okay.
I-
Yeah.
As long as it's gotten to everybody, then that's all I needed.
Until you
I
respond.
haven't gotten it, but that's fine.
Could we give a moment for Katie to shut this down and she can go home?
Did we
We did
vote?
not
Okay, we
vote,
didn't-
so
we
all
didn't
in
vote
favor
yet.
of adjourning to a closed session?
Aye.
I'm going to just make a comment. I have a hard time knowing how to vote because I have no idea what the subject matter is, but
I don't either.
I just want to state that I've had a concern that maybe we're a little bit too liberal with what we do off the record versus on the record. So
Okay.
I'll vote yes
It-
to find out what this is
Right,
about.
right.
But,
Well,
This is
what I
my
did too.
recommendation to go into it.
oh, okay.
And I'm aware of the purpose, and I
Oh,
think it's
then
appropriate.
that's great. I just felt like we've been going into closed session
Yeah.
a lot.
Well, we've been going into closed session for all allowed legal purposes. There has been no closed session that in any way violates the Open Meetings Act. I would want to make sure that's stated for the record.
So I have a unanimous vote to go into, to adjourn to a closed session.